I think you're right, man. I think fear is key. Fear is what keeps us from having everything that we want. We are afraid of what we want. We're afraid of God. We're afraid of the other. We're afraid of the light. Like right now, I have this really bright lamp on, and it's really blinding me. And when I look at it, it hurts. But if it's not there, you can't see me. But I'm afraid of it, and it hurts because when I look at it, and I try to look at the screen again to see myself, I can't see because the light is just still, you know, glazed onto my retina, and it takes a couple minutes for it to go away. And maybe you caught that analogy to God. You know, we look at God, and God burns us, burns our eyes, and we can't see anything but the light, anything but self. But you know, there's two sides to this. I think if you remember in the comments, I said something like the original birth of creation, God's birth, is um, God finding a way to scare itself, to sneak up behind itself and say boo and freak out and become not separate, but come to see the illusion of separateness as a reality. God had to do that to itself, and that is the process of birth. Because through birth, all of creation happens, and only after creation has happened could there ever be the experience of bliss, the experience of happiness, the experience of contentment. All of that is something that can only be made to exist if there is an existence. God is without existence. God is just essence, pure light. And so God has no experience. And to have experience of itself, God must fear something in order to create the illusion of separateness. And that's why fear is love. Because God creates the universe out of fear. But then in so doing, creates the opportunity for love. Because only if there were two apparently separate things could there be love. Because if there is no illusion of separateness, how could there be this intense feeling of love, of the desire to be one? If you desire to be one, you must think you're not already one. So to experience love, you also need to experience fear. In order to die, you must first be born. That's why sex and death are so related. And fear and love are so related. Everything is itself, and to say that fear is a separate energy that exists in the world as something that's not just an illusion is to be attached to the ego. Because only the ego is afraid, but once the ego has died, we're still there. If I'm here now, I must be here when I die because I don't ever remember becoming aware of being here. And so that leads me to believe I won't ever remember leaving this place. There's just a continual reincarnation of consciousness, of experience in different forms, all of which is related to God or to spirit. Spirit is ever present, and it gets broken up into these categories. Matter is that densification you were talking about of light. Matter is trapped light. And as matter evolves, the light inside has more and more of a creative urge to express itself, to get out, to break the trap. Matter becomes more chemically um, active, and all of a sudden, life pops into existence, and then life starts becoming more and more active and agitated, and desires more and more to express itself in a higher plane of existence, and life develops mind, and mind begins to communicate with other minds, and then the mind, that light that's still trapped in the matter of the brain, even though the matter of the brain is so organized through all this evolution and this reaching towards the light of the light that was originally trapped in matter. And finally the mind just transcends itself and becomes soul, and soul is mind realizing itself as spirit. But once we get there, we just, what do we have to say at that point? At this point, it really becomes a religious question. And, if you just look at the development of human thought over time, the first human cultures, the first people to be what we would term people, to have a language and a culture and a way of experiencing the world that they can pass on to one another, to further generations. Human beings have always been religious from the beginning, and only very recently have we decided that God does not exist. Only recently have we killed God. And I think when we killed God, we didn't stop being religious, we just replaced God with something else. We replaced it with the ego, with um, with the I that thinks and that can have whatever it wants, because the ego constructs its own world. I think, therefore I am. And, that's where we're at, or that's what we are faced with right now. Um, and so death becomes very frightening. But being that this is a religious question, I think it needs a lot of depth, or we need to pursue it with much depth in order to gain any kind of insight. So I'm going to post a link over there to a paper I wrote for a class that's called The Essence of Religion. So if you're interested, take a look and let me know what you think.